Hello guys, welcome to Movie Mind YouTube channel. Today, in this video, I am going to explain to you the full story of The Pursuit of Happiness movie. Let's take a look at the story of this movie without further delay. His name was Chris and he was selling a medical gadget to earn cash. He drops his child at school according to schedule. Then, at that point, he goes through his entire day selling this medical gadget. Chris had a plan to sell at least one gadget every month. But when he visited a hospital with this device, they rejected it, like other hospitals saying we don't need it at all. Later, Chris's wife was shown, who herself was a job holder. He requests his wife to pick his son up. However, his wife denies it by saying she is doing double duty. Afterward, when they were dining together around evening time, Chris glimpses here a puzzle Rubik's Cube, which was new as in the past. His wife asks him, "Have you paid all the taxes?" However, Chris tells his wife, he has asked for some more time. Hearing this, his wife ends up being so stressed. He starts to settle the puzzle again when his wife goes for work. And he says, it is a child's play. Following day, Chris again goes to sell his medical gadget, taking this. Then he sees a money manager on the way sitting on his huge vehicle. Then he asks that businessman, "What do you do for your living?" That man answers to Chris, "I'm stockbroker." Chris says, hearing this, "More education is required for this?" That man says, "It is not compulsory. Be that as it may, every individual ought to have conviction on his hard working. Furthermore, he ought to have explicit abilities." Chris was thinking this when he conversed with that businessman. How blissful the people in his surroundings are. When will he have such a day? That he will likewise be cheerful. Following day, Chris tells his wife that he will come home late on the grounds that he had additionally applied for the stockbroker. She says, "Don't make fun. We have just 2 months left to pay our home rent." Presently Chris needs to go to stockbroker office. He was unable to carry his scanner into the workplace. So he passes on his medical gadget to a woman present outside. Chris glimpses outside when he was applying for the job. The woman whom he had given his gadget as a trust, she had gotten away, taking this. Chris runs after that lady, collecting his job application form the office. But that woman had left by a train. On the same day, Chris had additionally vowed to his wife that he will sell this scanner today. Chris was upset on the coming day. He fills this job application. And he goes to submit his form in the office. He submits it there. After this, he gets seeing a same woman as he comes outside, who had circumvented, taking his medical gadget. He quickly pursues her. He says to that lady, reaching to her, "I have served all my savings on this device. Also, do you know the significance of losing this? To lose the gross pay of the month." He gifts a basketball on the birthday of his son. At the point when Chris again goes to sell his medical gadget, then he encounters the dean of the office again who tells him that my application had been submitted in a month earlier. However, the dean was short on time. He declares, "I've got to go now." Chris requests that man's time since he has to talk to him about something. "I have to go to the same place that you plan to go," he says. Now, traveling in the same cab, they both depart. Chris was now describing the man's personality and abilities. However, that individual was working on the problem. Chris hears him say, "Take it," and resolve this conundrum. Dean jumps out of the cab after Chris has finished solving the puzzle. Dean is greatly motivated by Chris after seeing this. But as soon as the cab stops, that man exits. It's stated that Chris was responsible for covering the cab fee. After stepping out of the cab, Chris immediately takes off running. He boards the train right away, but one of his hands is left outside. That hand, where he snagged his medical gadget. On the same day, Chris contacts his wife and apologizes that he continued to be unable to arrive home in time. But his wife was furious as hell, because Chris was to blame for her missing her duty time. His wife then informs him, "I'm going with my son." When Chris gets home, he checks because neither his wife nor his son were there. Chris gets a call from that dean the same day. He says, "Write down my secretary's number so we can discuss the job." However, Chris was without a pen and paper at the moment. He commits that phone number to memory and makes his way to a nearby shop. He pulls a piece of paper from there and writes down the phone number. The same day, Chris runs into his wife while traveling. Who was Chris who was so enraged? After leaving off his son at school, she had returned. "Chris!" she exclaims. "You don't satisfy me, at all. Why don't you comprehend?" When Chris hears this, he remains silent. He responds, "Okay. But I'll be living with my son." The next day, Chris brings his son to his house. His home's owner visits him in the interim. Chris informs the owner of his home that he is there to collect the rent. "I beg you to grant me more days. I'll cover your rent." The home's owner consents and extends Chris a few more days. The following day, Chris was observed painting the walls of his home. While he was painting, someone knocked on his door. Opening the door, he notices two police officers waiting to take him into custody. Because he had not paid the parking bill. He pays the parking fee there, but an officer there remarks that until tomorrow, it will be accepted. He calls his wife so she can pick up his son from school in the interim. His wife concurs, and Chris was interviewed the same day. He immediately goes to Dean to show up for the interview. What is this, though? He had donned that worn-out outfit, due of his limited time. In this appearance, Chris goes for an interview. They are all so astonished after that. Chris then says that he was taken into custody by the police yesterday, and from there he came right here for an interview. When interviewed, the manager of the establishment does not impress Chris anymore. In contrast, Chris has made everyone present giggle. He gets hired by the manager of this establishment, but Chris responds, "I'll tell you for this position after a thought." Because this was an unpaid internship, where Chris initially refuses to pay. However, the dean counsels him, "Start doing this now." Later, Chris comes back to the house. His wife and son had also returned home. The same night, as his son is dozing off, his wife tells him she is departing for New York because she has been employed there to work as a waitress. Chris concurs and declares, "My son will live with me." Chris's wife thought that he would care for his son better than she would. She sobs as she walks away from that location. The following day, Chris moves to a hospital to sell his medical invention, bringing his son with him. The administration of the hospital concurs to purchase his medical equipment. They buy the item. Chris now had little solace in it. That he has acquired some financial resources. Then Chris departs for his internship to begin. He hears Chris in his thoughts the following day. He talks to them while departing. Then he finds his medical device there once more. He had misplaced it while sprinting. He sprints after the person he saw his medical device with. But he is unable to apprehend that individual. A car has collided with him. He then notices that one of his shoes is missing. He now enters the program without a single shoe. The next scene demonstrates that Chris was doing his job correctly. However, his employment did not change in any way. Fortunately, he contacts the CEO of his business and finds him. He is interrupted by his internship director as he is on his way to speak with the CEO. He commands, "Park my car somewhere else." Because of this, Chris avoids speaking with his CEO. The same evening, Chris tells his kid, "My son, can you assist me? If you assist me with my upcoming meeting, we might go watch a basketball game." The following day, Chris visits the CEO's home. The CEO gives him the opportunity to do it, and he appreciates him for it. CEO requests to be carried along by Chris and his son, because Chris informed them of this before they left to watch the basketball game. During the game, the CEO speaks with Chris. "I favor your offers," he declares. "There is nothing you give that I won't accept." Little peace had now begun to intrude on Chris' life. In some ways, Chris' life was becoming better. The bank account of Chris has money taken out of it on the same day, as a result of unpaid taxes. This has caused Chris to worry once more. He had now left a small sum of money. Following that, Chris leaves to get money from a buddy. Something he had recently lent to his pal. However, that friend misleads by claiming, "I've already repaid your money." Having said that, he closes the door. Chris now had his tool in hand. He takes his device right away. He transports his device as he moves between hospitals. Therefore, it might in some way be sold out. And if Chris sells this item, he might make some money. Then Chris learns that the device has been damaged. The management of one hospital is prepared to purchase this, but the hospital's physicians object. At the time when it is repaired, we will buy this item. Chris was now uneasy in this place. When he arrived to his house, there were two issues. This happened while Chris' home's owner cleared the house of all of his belongings. Because he had neglected to pay the house's rent. Chris tries to enter his residence but finds that it has also been altered. For Chris and his son, there was no other option. He arrives at a station with his son. His son was holding a gadget. He queries his kid. "My son, is there a time machine here? We'll enter the world of the dinosaurs and switch it on." When Chris' son hears this, he becomes animated. They then spend the remainder of the night in a bathroom. When his son had dozed off, Chris started to regret his existence. Why does it happen to me in that way? As dawn breaks, Chris transfers to a homeless shelter. However, because only women and children live there, they are not welcomed. He next visits another homeless shelter but is likewise kicked out of that one. Finally, they are given a room with security. Then Chris fixes that gadget. The next day, it is evident that Chris was once more waiting in line at the homeless shelter. While they were eating, Chris was getting ready for his exam, which he had to bring to the conference the following day. When Chris leaves the house, he runs into the owner of his business, and he begs Chris for some cash to give to the cab driver. Chris was short on cash. He still pays the head the money in spite of this. Now Chris gives blood in exchange for a little sum of money. With that money, he fixes his medical equipment. Chris' son now queries him late at night in the homeless shelter. "You are the reason why my mum left us. You shouldn't give your mum any thought," he advises. On this, Chris' son remarks, "You are the finest father." Chris has now successfully fixed his device. He sells the item through which he makes a sizable profit. Together with his son, Chris checks into a motel. They then proceed to the seashore. The dean of that stockbroker firm is presented in the following scene. He congratulates Chris for introducing a lot of customers to his business. The following day, Chris reports to work. Everyone is grateful to see him. "I am wearing this new shirt because today is my last day of my internship." As he winks his eye at him, the leader of that establishment says, "Wear this shirt tomorrow and come here as well. As a result of your permanent employment." Chris controls his tear of joy in this situation. Additionally, the skull gives Chris his money back that he used to pay the cab fare. Outside, Chris declares that this time of life is happy. Chris approaches his son and gives him a passionate embrace. It was evident that Chris had a lot of difficulties in his life. He overcame every one of them in spite of this. It is revealed that Chris made a multi-million-dollar profit in the end. This is how the movie ends. For such an interesting movie explanation, please subscribe to my channel and activate the bell next to it. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like and comment. Thanks for watching. See you later in the video.